Assalamu alaikum. You're speaking to Amira, and welcome to Emotional Evolution, where we focus on our own emotional evolution because when we change, life around us changes. Just a little bit of history. I have studied a whole lot of psychotherapy for over 10 years, primarily doing inner child work, relational healing, and intergenerational trauma from a coaching perspective. And today I wanted to share something that I commonly hear. I commonly hear people saying, I've got this one family member or this one loved one that their issue, it's something that I'm wearing, that they've got an issue. And um, just check in to see if you identify this. If you've got someone in your life where you know they're in a pickle and you're wearing all of their problems, so you're feeling like it's impacting you, it keeps your mind kind of active, you feel responsible in some sort of way. So, what I'm going to talk into is how do you deal with that? How do you deal with someone who's in chaos and it's impacting you? The first step is to firstly identify um, where you're connecting to the drama. So, do you end up feeling obliged? Do you end up listening because you want to help? Um, do they end up positioning you in a way where you're the only few people that could help? Do they end up coming to you desperate, justifying their position and how they're in desperate need? And if that's so, just noticing that, hey, I'm being positioned as I'm the only solution to the issue. And perhaps me helping is me ignoring my own needs. And then I'm severely put out, or I'm going in circles, not really being able to resolve their issue to the point where I'm actually sacrificing some basic needs of mine. Maybe it's basic sanity and sleep and feeling calm and happy. And if that's the case, I just want you to keep listening because I'm going to explain the whole dynamic here. So that's step one, identifying that when someone else has an issue, I actually get drawn in so much that it's impacting me. So that's step number one. And with that, I'd say whenever we're actually helping someone, we need to identify that helping should not actually contribute to my harm. So whenever I'm being called to help and it's harming me, it's actually harming my basic needs for sleep, eat, tending to my family members, tending to my responsibilities, and my own mental health, if it's actually getting in the way of that, then it's actually not helping. And perhaps I'm not the right person to help. And usually, if someone is asking you to help when you're in a dire situation, that is a telltale sign that they're not emotionally sound. And it's actually a telltale sign for another dynamic that I'm going to talk into, which is quite an unhealthy dynamic. The second thing is that we can't become a victim to someone else's circumstance. So if someone is in dire need, there is a method to be able to observe that they're in distress and observe that um, are they're in some sort of suffering, and knowing that, and this is what they might do when they're explaining their situation. They may not talk in actual facts, they may talk in assumptions. They may be very critical of their issue. There might be a lot of external blame and no inward self responsibility or self sacrifice. They might always create like a no solution scenario. And you might also hear them insinuating and assuming things a lot and not actually drawing healthy boundaries. So knowing that, hang on a minute, like I'm actually able to identify their chaos instead of taking on their chaos. And if I'm actually taking it on, it's almost like a feeling like you're going into the issue with them and you're feeling like a sense of responsibility to fix it. And that in itself are signs of a bit of trauma bonding where you're empathizing and feeling bad for them being in this pickle. And the bit that is the trauma bond is where it actually, that our help comes at our own detriment. So, us helping others, it's actually harming us. That's the bit that is not healthy for you. And the third thing is that identifying um, that you can help them. Sometimes the way you can help them is showing them that they're going to find, like reassuring them that they will find the right supports. So if you feel like helping them is at your detriment, it doesn't mean that you need to do it. It could mean that you could actually point them in a direction of people that are probably better able to help. And also reassuring yourself that I'm actually not a bad person for doing that. Because whenever I fall into sacrificing things, eventually I'm going to burst and I'm going to take it out on me. I'm going to end up with all those other emotionally unhealthy traits like feeling resentful, feeling frustrated, going into a rage, self-sabotaging. And that's where those traits end up coming from, when we've actually given our power away, so much so that now we're in resentment or we're in dread, or they have the issue, however we're judging them and eye rolling them. That's a sign that we've actually given our power away and we haven't stayed healthy to ourselves. So basically, 3 points: help where you're not being emotionally harmed. Um, where you're not left ruminating. So if you're left ruminating is like overthinking. If their issue is making you overthink and it's just occupying your mind and you feel really bad for them, that's another sign that this issue is not for you, that it's just going to cause your detriment alongside of them already being in a pickle. And the third thing is, if it's an issue that's taking over your life, that's another sign that you need to hand it over to someone else. Because often people that come to you with this chaos, they may have had a deeper issue or a deeper trauma where they have their own internal chaos that keeps them engaged in an emotionally unsafe environment, or a financially unstable environment, or a physically unsafe environment. So you kind of taking the heat off of their issue actually isn't going to help. It actually perpetuates it in a way where it just dampens a bit of their heat, so they don't actually get the true help they need. Actually pointing them to the direction of help where a professional can help them detangle completely from a hard situation is what they probably need. And often we see this, and we see this commonly, where friends and family take off a little bit of their heat, but it actually never resolves the whole issue, because the whole issue is something, it's actually intertwined with their personality, where they haven't learned how to set healthy boundaries. It might be, like I mentioned, a financial boundary, or an emotional boundary, or a physical boundary that they're needing in order for them to create that stability for themselves in their life. And us kind of engaging in their chaos just keeps the chaos alive. If anything, it's almost like the chaos starts spreading like an infection. So knowing that, hang on a minute, I'm noticing that I have this one person in my life that I get drawn into their chaos. It occupies my mind. It mentally drains me. If I'm in that situation, perhaps I can apply these things, which is firstly identifying it. Secondly, learning how to separate from it. So instead of like being in the issue with them, observing the issue, noticing that they're in the issue. One thing that you can say when you're in that situation is just validate that it sounds like it's a really hard situation they're in. It sounds like it's very complicated and difficult, and perhaps that they'd benefit from getting some professional advice. Because our advice, if we, especially we don't understand unhealthy dynamics, we are just going to dampen it to the point where they're going to feel good enough and actually not get the help they need. And thirdly, identifying for yourself, like, is 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 it, when I'm helping, is it actually causing detriment to me? And if that's the case, I need to find help on how I can separate from this, because it's actually wearing me down unnecessarily. So no help and support should ever um, make us feel like we're going down a rabbit hole with someone into Never Never Land. And if that's actually happening, knowing that, okay, there are ways to get out of this, and there are solutions, and perhaps I'm trauma bonding with someone. So I hope that made sense. I think everyone has a type of relationship like this, either a friendship or a family member where they feel indebted to. And I'd invite you to look at that deeper, because it's just some healthy boundary setting that we can do, and some emotional healing we can do, where we we actually can take our self responsibility for ourselves, and also no boundaries around helping. Of course, you always want to be helpful, but there's times where we do the micro help in order for them to get the macro help, and we're not the macro helpers. And there's times we can do macro help. It's identifying what situation is this, and where am I falling down the well with them. Yeah, hope that's helpful. I'd ask you to have a look in your life where this is happening, and write down how it's impacting you, and then maybe go back and see, like, what could you implement that's going to get you out of this situation. I hope this was helpful. Inshallah, if you like this, please subscribe and share it with your loved ones, and inshallah, looking forward to bringing you more content soon. Assalamu alaikum.